Welcome to The Haunted Beard, everybody. My name is Jake. Thank you for joining me. So I've been making my way through George A. Romero's zombie movies, and today I am going to talk about the 1990 remake, Night of the Living Dead, directed by Tom Savini, and this one stars the one and only Tony Todd as the character of Ben.
They came to pay their respects.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
When the unburied dead return to life and seek human victims, 7 refugees shelter in a house in the Pennsylvanian countryside. And with a setup and plot that is basically the exact same as the original film, it's pretty much impossible to talk about this and review it without comparing it to that original film.
Every shelter is becoming a trap.
And remaking a movie is already difficult enough as it is, but then on top of that, when you're remaking a classic, you've really put yourself into some difficult territory, and this is, of course, a pretty tall order. And so for me, when it comes to remakes, I typically want to see something improved upon, or I want to see the story kind of go in a bit of a different direction, or have kind of a different approach to the overall story. I don't want a super faithful, like shot-for-shot type remake, because if that's the approach, it's kind of like, what's the point? I'll just go back and watch the original. And so I want to see something either significantly improved upon, or the writers and the directors go in kind of a different direction with the story. And so when it comes to the remake of Night of the Living Dead, there are some things that I think they improve upon, but they don't really do enough in terms of the story to kind of justify itself. They don't do anything different. The story here pretty much plays out the exact same way. And so overall, there are some parts here that I enjoyed. I was more on the positive side overall, but at the same time, I did feel like the story left something to be desired, because it's pretty much the exact same story in the exact same movie as you get with the original 1968 version. Now, some of the things that they do in the remake that I think are an improvement, first of all, I think the film's pacing is better. This is a faster paced film, and it just feels like there's more going on. And so it just moves along a little quicker, and there's a couple little things that they do throughout the film that I think kind of add to some of that pacing, and it kind of adds to some of the tension of it all that makes the film feel like it moves along at a quicker pace. Some of those little things are in the original film, when Barb and Ben are first in the house, they start boarding up the house even before the zombies kind of first attack. Whereas here in the remake, the zombies start attacking and they're trying to board up the house as the zombies are attacking. And so I like how they kind of combine both of those things together. It makes those sequences feel more intense and kind of exciting. They do a little bit less exposition stuff with the television, whereas the original film, you've got probably at least like a 3, 4, 5-minute sequence in the movie that really kind of sits you down and explains everything that's going on. Whereas here, there's only one short little scene with the TV where they're kind of explaining what's going on. So they trim that down a little bit. And I also think that the internal conflict between the characters in the house, it just works a little better, and how they handle that conflict and the clash between the characters, I think it just works a little bit better. And I think that's largely due to the acting, as I think the acting here in the remake is an improvement over the original film.
You leave that door open. We may want to get down there. We may need to get down there if those things break in. Yeah, sure. You want the best of both worlds.
And not only is the acting a little better, I also think the characters are a little better, especially with the character of Barb. But just the acting and the characters, I think, are both a little bit of an improvement. I mean, you have Tony Todd in this film. This is his first horror film performance, based on my understanding, which is pretty cool. And he does a really good job. He creates a good, really kind of protagonist, this guy who's a leader, who's trying to, just kind of figure out and navigate the craziness of this situation. And he's making decisions and trying to help people and keep everybody safe and try to survive, while also dealing with Cooper, who's a complete idiot, and, tensions rise and things like that. And I like his character, and you can just tell here, he just has a presence about him. He just has the screen presence that's kind of captivating. There's a scene that occurs earlier on where he delivers a little bit of a monologue, and your eyes are just kind of glued to the screen as he's delivering it.
This is something that nobody has ever heard about and nobody's ever seen before. This is hell on earth.
And so Tony Todd and his screen presence and his performance really help elevate this film. And he's just a whole lot of fun to watch. He does a really solid job in this film. And I also like, too, how they changed and kind of rewrote the character of Barb, where she actually kind of contributes more to everything that's going on. She's less of kind of the damsel in distress sort of role, and she takes on more of an active role here and gets involved in the fight. And, you know, she's got a gun and she's locked and loaded and ready to go, and she's shooting zombies and, you know, is fighting and stuff like that. And so I like how they kind of rewrote her role and gave her more of an active participatory type of a role in the film. I thought that was an improvement as well. I also like the updated makeup, and I think the practical effects here are pretty good. I don't really want to compare it, though, too much to the original film, just because of the original film. They didn't have anything to draw from, right? That was kind of the first sort of introduction to those types of zombies, low budget, black and white, and all that stuff. And I do like the black and white in the original film, but to kind of say that the practical effects and the look of the zombies were lacking in the original film, I don't think is really a fair critique. So just kind of more focusing solely on this film, I do like kind of the updated zombie look. You get just, they're kind of gnarlier looking, more makeup and things like that. The practical effects here, I think, are pretty good. It's Tom Savini. Some of the stuff, though, I felt like we got a little bit shortchanged. Like there was some cuts and some editing around some of the effects. And then I read, I guess the studio made Savini make some cuts and edits to avoid an X rating, which is kind of crazy. But anyways, that's what they did. But for the most part, you know, the practical effects are pretty good stuff here. And so I appreciate that about the film as well. Now, regarding the ending, though, I have some mixed feelings. I like how some of it plays out. I think that there is, again, good kind of internal conflict and tension between Ben and Cooper, and then the daughter who turns into a zombie, and Barb. And all that, kind of how all that plays out is pretty good. There's some good tension there and just some good conflict and drama to it all. I like what it says about just humanity, that it's like, you know, we're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse trying to survive. And if there's any type of situation that should require human beings coming together to kind of fight for a single cause, this would be it. But of course, we can't do that, and we just end up fighting amongst ourselves and killing one another kind of thing. So, you know, kind of how all that's dealt with, I think works pretty well. Where my issue kind of comes in, though, is really just in the last couple minutes. And I can appreciate them trying to take the ending in a little bit of a different direction, but the direction that they took it in, I wasn't a huge fan of. And the main reason is that it kind of didn't really make sense to me. And it just felt kind of forced and like it didn't really fit. And so obviously what ends up happening is Barb, she goes out and she runs into kind of the local militia, I guess I'll call it, who's going out. And so they end up bringing her back to the house. They open up the door to the basement, and unfortunately Ben's there. He's still alive, but he's turned into a zombie. The thing that I had with Ben turning into a zombie, it didn't really make sense, because I was like, how did that happen? He went downstairs, he killed the wife who had turned into a zombie, and to me, like, he was in the clear. He spent all night there, they come over the next morning, and somehow he turned into a zombie. And so it didn't really make sense, and it just felt like this kind of forced ending of like, we're going to kind of throw in this sort of final kind of twist, sort of gotcha moment, but it just didn't fit, and it didn't make sense, and it didn't really work for me. So I kind of found that to be a little unsatisfying. So yeah, overall, those are my thoughts. I don't really have a whole lot more to add, just because, again, pretty much, you know, 95% of the film here in terms of its story plays out pretty much exactly like that original film. So overall, it's a film that I enjoyed. I still had a pretty good time with it, but it doesn't quite do enough to kind of fully justify it being necessary and like kind of justifying its existence. There are some things that it improves on. I think some of that has to do with just it being a little bit more modern and having a bigger budget and better acting and things like that. But from a story perspective, it doesn't really do anything significantly different. And so it's kind of just like, okay. I can enjoy some parts of it, but at the same time, it's like, the original has the original factor. So overall, I'm gonna be like 6.5 out of 10 for the Night of the Living Dead remake. Let me know down in the comments though. Would be interested in hearing from you guys. Are there things about this remake that you prefer over the original? Would be curious to hear from you. So that's all I got for you. Up next is the Dawn of the Dead remake, Zack Snyder 2004. That will be up and out pretty soon. That's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. If you got anything out of this video, go ahead and do me a favor and do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.